What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear about South America? Brazil, the Amazon rainforest, and when it comes to religion in that region, what comes to your mind first? Christianity and Christ the Redeemer? Did you know about a small country in South America that has the second highest population of Hindus in the Western Hemisphere, percentage-wise? Well, it is gorgeous and it reeks of Sanatan Dharma. I'm talking about Suriname, where Suriname Hindustani, a combination of Bhojpuri and Awadhi, was born and is currently the third most spoken language in the country. In this series developed by TFI, we trace back to the story of how Hindus traveled to different countries across the planet, settled there, and made it their home. In the previous editions, we covered the story of Hinduism in the nations of Fiji and Mauritius. The third country in the list is the nation of Suriname, a beautiful tropical country in South America. So how did Hindus arrive in Suriname and what is their status currently? Well, let's find out. Hi and welcome. You're watching TFI English, the national socio-political analysis arm of the TFI Media Group. I'm Siddharth, your host. In this video, I will talk about the history of Hinduism in the South American nation of Suriname. Let's begin. Suriname is a country located on the northeastern coast of South America, nestled between two countries, that is Guyana and French Guiana, overlooking North Atlantic Ocean. The smallest South American nation recently made headlines here in India after the newly elected president, Mr. Chandrika Prasad Santokhi, took the oath of office in Sanskrit while holding Vedas during the inauguration ceremony. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, during one of his monthly Mann Ki Baat radio addresses, had mentioned Santokhi, which made him a popular figure across India. However, Santokhi upholding the Sanatan Dharma to the highest regard is not a one-off incident. Suriname, in fact, has a considerable Hindu population. Progressive Reform Party, the party which Santokhi represents, was earlier named as United Hindustani Party or UHP, and the last Hindu leader to become the president was Ram Sevak Shankar, who held the post from 1988 to 1990. The 2012 census reveals that Christianity is the predominant religion in Suriname, accounting for 48.4% of the country's total population. However, Hinduism is the second most practiced religion, composing 22.3% of the population. Meanwhile, the Muslims of Suriname trace their origins to South Asia and Indonesia, where they were brought as indentured laborers. Most Muslims in Suriname are Sunnis, while small sections of the population follow Sufism, Javanese Kejawen, and other syncretic faiths. Akin to other foreign nations with a sizable Hindu populace, Suriname was introduced to Indians and the Hindu faith by the colonists. However, unlike Fiji and Mauritius, the two other countries covered in this series so far, it was the Dutch colonists that brought Indians into the South American nation as indentured laborers. The Dutch colony was facing an acute shortage of labor on their sugar plantations due to the abolition of slavery in 1863. As a result, the Dutch businessmen running the plantations lobbied the Dutch government to allow the procurement of indentured laborers from British India. Finally, on September 8, 1870, the Suriname Immigration Treaty was drafted, and 3 years later, the immigration of Indian laborers started. The first contingent shipped was from Calcutta, with the majority of the laborers coming from Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. Despite the cruel practice of shipping laborers thousands of miles away from their homelands, the majority of them preferred to stay put in the country. Reportedly, around 34,000 Indians reached Suriname in the 5 decades after the treaty was first signed, and 65% of them opted to stay on. Historian Ashutosh Kumar has noted that one of the main reasons for the laborers staying back in Suriname was the presence of a casteless society, and that unlike the Britishers, the Dutch allowed them land-owning rights. Quoted as saying by the Indian Express, Kumar said, unlike the British colonies, the Dutch had a policy through which the indentured laborers were entitled to some amount of land. This was one big reason why a majority of them stayed back. He further added, most of the people who left India for Suriname were either from the lower caste or very poor. Once in Suriname, they were freed from caste oppression. Voyages after voyages, the Hindu population arrived and continued to grow and flourish in Suriname. Such was the impact of the Hindu culture that Suriname Hindustani, which is a product of the combination of Bhojpuri and Awadhi, was born in Suriname and is currently known to be the third most spoken language after the Dutch and Sranan Tongo. Bhojpuri and chutney music, as well as folk dance forms from India like Ahirva Nach, are hugely popular in Suriname, and the locals continue to cherish their ancestors' roots. Much like the neighboring Caribbean islands, Suriname has beautiful temples visited by the locals and tourists alike. Meanwhile, Deepavali and Holi are national holidays in Suriname. The Indians brought their eating habits and spices to the South American country, and as a result, roti and pom have found their way amongst the taste palette of the current populace. There is a discernible amalgamation of African, Javanese, Dutch, Jewish and Portuguese with the Indo-Surinamese cuisine as well. Suriname is truly a melting pot of cultures, and yet Indian Hindus have managed to create a separate and unique identity for themselves through their sheer hard work and will, all through the last century and a half.